Townsville may be the safest city in the world from evil geniuses, talking pickles, and sentient pieces of meat. But is it safe from bankruptcy? In 2025, with the Powerpuff Girls still saving the day and casually leveling downtown, it's time we look past the sugar and spice and into the soaring cost of their explosive heroism.
No, because it's chaos, and everyone gets an A+, and I worked so hard on that diorama. So hard, it matters!
The Powerpuff Girls. Sugar, spice, and everything nice, plus one accidental dose of Chemical X and a citywide insurance nightmare. These pint-sized paragons of justice may have been created in a lab.
Sugar, spice, and everything nice. These were the ingredients chosen to create the perfect little girl. But Professor Utonium accidentally added an extra ingredient to the concoction, Chemical X. Thus, the Powerpuff Girls were born!
But their talent for obliterating public infrastructure was nothing short of supernatural. Townsville, the colorful cartoon city perpetually under siege, might as well have installed revolving doors on its repair shops and traffic cones as permanent urban decor, while Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup regularly thwarted evil with flair. Let's not pretend the villains were the only threats to civic stability. More often than not, a single superpowered punch from these girls turned downtown into a demolition derby. Take, for instance, your average battle with Mojo Jojo, the hyper-intelligent simian with a vocabulary as long as his monologues usually hatched plots to take over the city, or occasionally just be a nuisance. Remember when he switched everyone's heads? While Mojo was undoubtedly a menace, half the time, it was the counterattack from the Powerpuff Girls that caused the real damage. In Uh-Oh Dynamo, Professor Utonium builds a giant robot suit for the girls to fight equally oversized foes.
Look, girls, yesterday's horrible monster fight made me realize something. You girls are everything to me. You are my life, and I'm responsible for your safety, and...
Spoiler, they use it once, utterly annihilate the city while trying to stop a giant monster, and then mothball the thing faster than a Netflix series with low ratings. The robot caused more devastation than the kaiju it was meant to destroy. One might say, Townsville suffered from friendly fire of apocalyptic proportions.
What the heck happened? I don't know.
And don't even get me started on Buttercup. If Blossom is the brain and Bubbles is the heart, then Buttercup is the fists, all of them, simultaneously. She once started a fight with a gang of villains because she lost a game of tag. The sheer number of walls, buildings, and unfortunate hot dog carts that met their end during that scuffle would make a structural engineer weep. The girls might have super strength, but Townsville's zoning department clearly lacked the foresight to prepare for heroes with the subtlety of a wrecking ball on a caffeine high. Now, let's consider Bubbles, often seen as the innocent one, the sweetheart, the girl with a glue stick in one hand and an octopus plushie in the other. But underestimate Bubbles at your own peril. In the episode Bubble Vicious, she attempts to prove she's just as tough as her sisters.
Professor! You turned it down again! I'm just as tough as Blossom and Buttercup! I can handle the rough stuff too!
And, in the process, delivers a beatdown so intense that even the concrete trembled in fear. Her rampage left Townsville looking like it hosted a monster truck rally during an earthquake. The mayor called it an overreaction, but the insurance companies called it Chapter 11. The mayor himself, poor guy, was essentially a walking metaphor for bureaucratic helplessness, constantly dialing the girls via that red emergency phone, which, let's be honest, was probably melted or smashed at least once a week. He never stopped to consider if maybe, just maybe, the girls were solving problems with all the delicacy of a rhino in a ballet class. His secretary, Ms. Bellum, seemed to understand the chaos, but also knew better than to get in the way of a trio of airborne grade schoolers with atomic-level strength and the attention span of, well, grade schoolers. Let's not forget the more esoteric destruction. In Powerpuff Bluff, 3 criminals dress up as the girls and go on a crime spree. Naturally, when the real girls confront them, chaos ensues. They fight each other through town, chase their imposters through walls, businesses, and probably someone's backyard barbecue, leaving a trail of chaos that would make Godzilla feel underachieving. It raises the question, if Townsville were real, would it be the world's most progressive city for its acceptance of little girl superheroes? Or would it be the first place to require a federal no-punch zones initiative? Even environmental destruction wasn't off the table. Remember Meet the Beatles? While a brilliant Beatles-themed episode, it ends with the girls defeating the villain group in a musical montage that, naturally, involves several collapsing buildings, flipped cars, and an exploding art gallery. For every witty pun and cultural reference, there was a broken window and a panicked resident diving for cover. Somewhere in Townsville, there's got to be a support group for traumatized small business owners whose shops keep ending up as collateral damage. Hi, I'm Dave, and this is the 6th time my smoothie stand has been vaporized. Of course, all this destruction begs the philosophical question: if superheroes save the city every week, but also flatten it in the process, are they the heroes or the villains? Townsville's construction industry must be booming. Either they're using vibranium to rebuild so fast, or there's a union of magical masons working overtime. One imagines city planners regularly using phrases like, well, it's blossom-proof now, and we reinforced it in case Bubbles loses her temper again. If there was ever a city that needed superhero insurance, it's Townsville. And not just any insurance, an aggressive, all-encompassing policy that covers everything from kaiju attacks to incidental lightning bolts from toddlers. One has to wonder, after years of enduring the Powerpuff Girls' well-meaning but massively destructive heroics, how exactly Townsville manages to stay afloat. Did they have a gold mine beneath City Hall?
Whoa! Look at all this gold! Gold records! Gold teeth! World's biggest gold nugget!
Was their economy fueled by a black market Mojo Jojo memorabilia trade? Or, and this is the likeliest theory, was Townsville secretly bankrupt, smiling through the financial apocalypse like a city in denial? Let's talk numbers, hypothetically. Each week, or sometimes daily, depending on how often a new villain showed up, the city took a pounding. Skyscrapers shattered, streets split open like poorly baked brownies, and entire blocks were turned into smoldering rubble after a quick spat with, say, a radioactive broccoli monster or a vengeful amoeba. The cost of rebuilding a single city block? Millions. What is the cost of rebuilding it after Buttercup uppercuts a monster directly through it? Priceless. And by priceless, we mean completely unaffordable. In the real world, this level of destruction would bankrupt most countries, let alone one modestly sized city, whose budget was likely managed by a mayor who still struggles to open a jar of pickles. There's no conceivable way that Townsville had a tax base wide enough to keep up with the cost of construction, repair, cleanup, trauma therapy, and emergency response, unless their local economy was secretly propped up by being the global hub for explosion-resistant building materials. This city was probably in financial freefall by season 2. One can imagine the city council meetings. Okay, so we've allocated $30 million to rebuild the Civic Center again, $12 million for bridge repairs, and $8.6 million for Buttercup-related vehicle damages. We've also received another complaint from the Bakery District about aerial combat during rush hour. Meanwhile, the only revenue streams were probably parking meters and lemonade stands. With inflation, not even a bake sale by Bubbles could patch the crater left in the municipal budget, or the ones left in literally everything else. And it's not like the villains were any easier on the economy. Mojo Jojo alone caused enough destruction to merit his own FEMA category. Him, with his cryptic, fabulous chaos, could create citywide crises that demanded extensive cleanup, psychological services, and probably ritual exorcisms. Even less threatening foes like the Amoeba Boys caused incidents that led to thousands of dollars in property damage, often by accident. Combine that with the Powerpuff Girls' enthusiasm for justice and casual disregard for fragile infrastructure, and you've got the makings of a budgetary black hole. What makes the situation even more ridiculous is the city's lack of preemptive defense measures. You'd think, after the 47th time a bank got launched into orbit, someone might have invested in monster-proof steel, underground bunkers, or, I don't know, a better security system than wait for Blossom to show up. But no, Townsville kept rebuilding the same way, like an optimistic goldfish with a hammer. It's the definition of municipal madness. There's also the question of public morale. A bankrupt city can hide its debt for a while, but its citizens will start to notice when public services begin shutting down. Sorry, Timmy, no more school today. Brick punched it into a volcano again. Garbage collection? Probably handled by mutated raccoons at this point. Hospital resources? Permanently overbooked from falling debris injuries. You know the phrase, act of God, on insurance forms? Townsville had to expand it to include an act of Bubbles having a bad day. And yet, weirdly enough, no one ever seemed to move out. Property values had to be flatter than the terrain after a Powerpuff fight. Still, people stuck around. Maybe the citizens were extremely resilient. Maybe the economy operated on cartoon logic. Or maybe, and hear me out, Townsville was actually bankrupt for years, surviving only through emergency bailouts from the federal government, pity grants from neighboring cities, or experimental funding from Professor Utonium's secret patents. Who knows what kind of intellectual property he's licensing? Chemical X trademark, now in energy drink form. Ultimately, the answer to whether Townsville was bankrupt isn't just yes. It's absolutely, catastrophically, perpetually. It was a city held together with duct tape, cartoon optimism, and blind faith in 3 little girls who could destroy half the city before breakfast. And yet they never stopped cheering for them. Because even in bankruptcy, when the rent's overdue and the rubble's still warm, people would rather have a broken city protected by heroes than a safe one run by villains. And hey, with enough bake sales and a federal disaster grant, maybe next year they'll finally finish fixing that bridge Buttercup threw the monster through. Again, whether you cheer for the girls or side with the city's overworked accountants, one thing's clear: Townsville's true battle might not be with villains, but with its bank balance. Want to dive deeper into the economic aftermath of superheroism? Subscribe for more breakdowns of cartoon chaos, real-world costs, and the surprising logic of animated cities under siege.